Hello friends and greetings for the day. Welcome back to another tutorial on ISTQB Advance Test Manager certification. We are in chapter 4 talking about the defect management and continuing ahead with the next segment of the 4.2, that is defect lifecycle and the software development lifecycle. And today we are covering about managing invalid and duplicate defect reports. Now, of course, it is very crucial for a test manager to keep account on the invalid and duplicate defect reports because we are actually utilizing our time to raise unwanted defects which might not be even considered for replications or resolutions. So we generally try to make sure that if these possibilities occur and we keep account of such defects and try to reduce them in future so that our cycle time is not wasted in raising unwanted defects which may not be adding a lot of value to our quality processes. But sometimes they may look like invalid, but they are not. And what's that? Let's discover that as a part of this tutorial. In some cases, an anomaly occurs not as the symptom of a defect, but rather due to a problem with the test environment, the test data, or some other element of the testware or the tester's own misunderstanding. Now, we have to agree at this point that there might be a possibility that the defect might be appearing in your environment but not in the developers. And that could be due to any number of reasons. Of course, it can be about the test data which you're trying to use, which is not applicable for that application, or maybe the environmental facts which developers don't make use of. And sometimes you get an error or defect just because of the environment constraints or environment parameters. So a tester needs to be considerate about that, whether the defect what you see is because of some test related factors or is it a generic application related factor. Also, to add, sometimes it can be related to any other testware which you try to integrate to your execution process. Also, sometimes a tester can also have a misunderstanding. It's not that the misunderstanding is only related to requirement management team, architects, developers. It can also be related to testers, and sometimes testers misunderstand an outcome and report it as a defect. Now, we have to take care of such things and manage such defects in a best way. Now, if the tester opens such a defect report that subsequently is found not to relate to a defect in the work product under test, that results in something called as false positive. That means the defect exists, but actually the symptom was not there. Now, false positive can actually further be defined from the point of saying that what exactly it is. So a false positive is basically an error in which a test result incorrectly indicates the presence of a condition such as a disease when the disease is not even present. That means it's showing some kind of abrupt behaviors or symptoms, but the defect actually does not exist. It's not a defect and you rated it as a defect. So that is false positive, where actually there is no problem in the code, there's no problem in the application, but the behavior, the symptom shows that it might be a problem. So you report such defects to the developer, but developers generally cancel or reject those defects or mark it as invalid defect reports. Now that's what you refer it to as false positive. Okay, false, that was your interpretation, but positive, that means everything is working fine. Now, in addition, some of these defects can exhibit different symptoms which may appear to the tester as being entirely unrelated. Now that's the other way around. And if two or more defect reports are filed which subsequently are found to relate to the same root cause, one of the defect report is typically retained while the other are closed or marked as a duplicate defect reports. So now we understand the status of duplicates. That means a tester, when working on any application, may find multiple defects from different components or different integration processes, but when they actually report it, probably they may all have a common root cause. Now, of course, this does not go like a developer should resolve each and every one and update the status as resolved. So developer, once he understands that these all defects have a common root cause, so one of the report will be marked as resolved and the all other will be marked with a duplicate of this particular defect ID. Because we don't want to target a lot of defect being worked on the rework, and rather multiple defects can be resolved with just one particular resolution. But this is limited to as far as the defects have the common root cause. If they are not having the common root cause, then this is not applicable. While invalid and duplicate defects reports represent a certain level of inefficiency, sometimes the testers have been raising a lot of defects, but most of them are being marked as invalid or duplicate. It becomes a cushion on the testing team. Like being a quality team, you're trying to raise unwanted defects, or probably knowingly or unknowingly, but let's consider unknowingly that you're raising invalid defects. That creates a question on your way of working. That are you trying to just raise simply defects, or is this really going to add some value? So keeping a count on that is very important, because some amount of such report is inevitable and should be accepted by the test manager. Accepted by the test manager in order to improvise the test process, increase the efficiency of the testing team, and also try to improve the understanding on the requirement or the application analysis while doing the testing of that application. Now, when managers attempt to eliminate these all invalid and duplicate defect reports, the number of false negatives typically increases, since testers are being discouraged from filing defect reports. Because most of their reports are being marked as invalid, they might feel discouraged or dismotivated in order to raise a defect. Now, what exactly false negative is? False negative basically stands for that a particular scenario where you don't have a condition, but you really do. That means there might be a problem, but the symptoms are not shown to you. So a defect is lying behind the screen, but you are unable to identify it. So the false negative systems count can increase in this situation, because a lot of things are being marked as invalid because probably I don't have a behavior, I don't have a symptom of that particular defect, but probably that defect actually exists. So not just blindly all the invalid defects must be eliminated. Some of them must be considered for further analysis to see that if there is literally any kind of back-end actions which might be taking place, but on the front end, you may not have any kind of abrupt behaviors. Now that's where this has to be decreased, the testing organization defect detection effectiveness, which is related to a key testing organization objective in most of the cases. So we generally try to encourage our test team in order to report as many defects as possible, but for the test manager, it is important to target and manage the invalid and duplicate defect reports. Because if in case we do not manage them, we are actually pushing unwanted things to the development team and increasing the rework duration as well as decreasing the efficiency. But at the same time, a manager should not be demotivating or discouraging the test team. They must be always trying to encourage them and say that that's fine, you got some defects which were invalid, but yes, good job, keep it up. Try to find out certain things, but next time keep an eye on that if there are no such behaviors, please do not report it as a defect, so that we can save a lot of time in showcasing our efficiency. Well, that was a quick tutorial to talk about how to manage your invalid and duplicate defect reports within the defect management. Should you have anything else, feel free to comment below. I'm always there to address your queries and answer them well. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, keep understanding the context. Thanks for watching the video, team, and happy learning.